The Battle of Bull Run, also known as the Battle of Manassas, was the first major battle of the American Civil War, taking place on July 21, 1861. This was not just a bloody confrontation between the North and the South. It marked a crucial turning point, altering the perception of the American public regarding the brutal nature of war. What initially seemed to be a short conflict soon became evident as a long and painful road ahead for both sides. In this video, we will explore the tense developments of the battle, the prominent role of General Stonewall Jackson, and the valuable strategic lessons learned from this historic encounter. After the war erupted with the attack on Fort Sumter in April 1861, both the North and the South began preparing for large-scale battles. In the North, President Abraham Lincoln and the public believed that the powerful Union Army, which was larger and better equipped, would easily crush the Southern forces. There was a belief that a single decisive victory would swiftly quell the secessionist movement. The Northern Army, under the command of General Irvin McDowell, received orders to march south and dismantle the Confederate forces commanded by General P.G.T. Beauregard. At that time, Southern troops were stationed near Manassas Junction, a strategic town close to vital railroads. Both armies were relatively inexperienced, composed mainly of volunteer militia, eager to see a quick resolution to the conflict. Civilians from Washington, D.C. flocked to the battlefield, viewing the upcoming clash as a form of entertainment, fully expecting a swift victory. On the morning of July 21, 1861, the Union Army, led by Irvin McDowell, crossed the Bull Run Creek with the goal of launching a surprise attack on the left flank of the Confederate Army. They divided their forces into two columns, advancing toward the Confederate positions with the hope of driving them back and seizing key locations. General Irvin McDowell was a responsible officer but lacked real combat experience. Although he was well trained at West Point and had served in various staff roles, he had never commanded a large-scale battle before. This lack of hands-on experience put him under immense pressure to lead and strategize, especially when commanding a largely inexperienced army comprised of fresh recruits who had never been in actual combat. McDowell was meticulous and cautious, yet he was also perceived as indecisive in critical situations. He was tasked with commanding over 35,000 Union soldiers, most of whom were hastily assembled volunteers summoned to defend the Union. Under his command was a force comprising infantry armed with rifles, cavalry, and a handful of artillery batteries, along with support from reinforcements. Despite their numerical advantage, McDowell's troops lacked the organization and fighting spirit found in their Southern counterparts. To prepare for the battle, he planned to seize Henry House Hill, a strategic hill that was crucial for controlling the Manassas area. Henry House Hill was an expansive, elevated area situated between open fields and the Bull Run Creek, representing a decisive high ground in the battle. Whichever side controlled this hill could monitor and exploit the terrain to shell the enemy, as well as control key routes leading to Manassas Junction. Furthermore, the hill's location was advantageous due to its proximity to the railroads, facilitating troop movements and supply logistics. Understanding the significance of seizing Henry House Hill, McDowell cautiously deployed his troops. He directed his soldiers to move from the northeast, across Bull Run, intending to attack the left flank of the Southern Army stationed there. McDowell's forces were divided into two wings. The main body would launch a direct assault on the hill, while the other wing would attempt to encircle and create a surprise attack from the west. The Union artillery opened fire on the Confederate positions, heralding the commencement of the assault. While the Union soldiers were inexperienced, they were armed with more advanced weaponry than their Southern counterparts. Their ranks consisted of infantry equipped with Springfield rifles, known for their long range and high accuracy. The artillery was outfitted with 12-pounder Napoleon cannons, capable of delivering powerful barrages from a distance, effectively supporting the assault on the hill. With the advantage of numbers and modern equipment, the Union Army gradually began to push back the Confederate forces from several key strongholds on Henry House Hill. However, The situation at Bull Run completely changed by midday on July 21st, 1861, when General Thomas Stonewall Jackson arrived on the battlefield with his reinforcements. Jackson was not only one of the most talented generals of the South, but he also stood out for his decisiveness and resilience in battle. Under the immense pressure from the larger and more powerful Union Army, Jackson quickly realized that only a strong defense and strategic tactics could salvage the situation. As the Union forces launched fierce attacks and pushed the Southern troops from their key defensive positions at Henry House Hill, Jackson and his reinforcements arrived just in time to make a crucial impact. Understanding that losing this hill would mean losing the entire battle, Jackson swiftly organized his troops into tight defensive lines on the hill. Under Jackson's command, the Southern forces not only reinforced their lost positions, but also began a vigorous counterattack. He arranged his troops in dense defensive formations, strategically placing infantry and artillery at advantageous locations, utilizing the elevated terrain of Henry House Hill to thwart the Union assaults. Jackson ordered his artillerymen to target the advancing Union lines directly, inflicting heavy casualties and significantly slowing their advance. One of Jackson's key strategies was to maintain the morale of his soldiers despite the pressures from the enemy forces. In the most critical moments, he calmly led his troops, undeterred by the hail of bullets from the Union Army. Jackson was not just issuing commands. He became a living symbol of resilience. As waves of Northern attacks rained down, Jackson stood firm, unwavering, and kept his formation intact like a stone wall. The steadfastness and bravery of Jackson profoundly inspired the Southern soldiers. In a historic moment, a Southern officer shouted to the troops, "Look at Jackson. He stands like a stone wall." This phrase quickly spread throughout the battlefield, becoming a morale booster for the defending soldiers. The name Stonewall, which originated from this moment, became not just a nickname, but also a symbol of Jackson's unwavering spirit and the resilience of the entire Southern Army during this battle. Jackson's arrival completely shifted the dynamics of the battle. Under his command, the Southern forces not only held their ground on Henry House Hill, but also began a vigorous counteroffensive. Jackson's reinforcements relentlessly pressured the Union troops, pushing them back from the positions they had seized. His combination of a strong defense with decisive counterattacks significantly shook the morale of the Northern Army. By the afternoon, the Northern Army's advantage began to dwindle. After a day of intense fighting in the sweltering heat, their soldiers grew fatigued, and morale plummeted. In contrast, the Southern troops received crucial reinforcements. From afar, Southern reinforcements, commanded by General Joseph E. Johnston, arrived just in time via railroads, a strategic factor unprecedented in American military history. This arrival shifted the balance of power on the battlefield, enabling the Southern Army to solidify its defenses and prepare for a strong counterattack. General Johnston, an experienced and strategically astute commander, coordinated with General Beauregard to reorganize their formations and prepare for a counteroffensive. His well-equipped and highly motivated reinforcements immediately joined the fray, launching a fierce assault on the positions held by the Union troops. Notably, on Henry House Hill, the forces under General Stonewall Jackson successfully thwarted every attack by the Union Army. Despite being outnumbered, under Jackson's decisive leadership, the Southern forces not only maintained their defensive lines, but also began their own counteroffensive. Jackson continued to enhance his strategy, utilizing the high ground of Henry House Hill to shell the advancing Northern formations. The Northern Army, having suffered significant losses and becoming exhausted from several failed assaults, began to panic. Their fighting spirit rapidly crumbled as they witnessed the fierce counterattack from the south. The Southern artillery and cavalry, coordinated strategically, relentlessly struck at the Union positions. The Northern units became fragmented, their formations shattered, and General McDowell's commands ceased to be effective. The weary and disorganized troops under McDowell were pushed back from Henry House Hill, and they no longer had the capacity to launch a counterattack. Amid this chaos, Many Northern soldiers began to flee the battlefield. A sense of despair spread throughout their ranks as these units were attacked from both sides. The retreat quickly turned into a frantic rout. The Northern Army, gripped by fear and loss of control, abandoned weapons and equipment in their desperate attempt to escape back toward Washington. D.C. inexperienced soldiers lost their discipline and self-organization, resulting in widespread scattering across the battlefield. The scene of the retreat was a complete collapse, both mentally and organizationally. Horses, artillery, and soldiers surged chaotically along the dusty roads, causing blockages and further adding to the confusion. Army wagons were left abandoned on the roads, while hundreds of soldiers shouted in panic, trying to evade the overwhelming assaults from the south. Some units even fled straight toward the Potomac River, too frightened to return to the battlefield. The Battle of Bull Run ended with a significant victory for the South. The Northern Army suffered heavy losses, with approximately 2,896 dead and wounded, while the South lost around 1,982 soldiers. However, despite their victory, the Southern forces lacked the manpower to pursue and completely destroy the retreating Northern Army. This victory boosted the South's confidence in their ability to maintain independence, while the North was forced to confront the reality that the war would not end quickly. The Northern public, who had once viewed the battle as an entertainment spectacle, now faced the harsh truth of war's brutality. The Battle of Bull Run revealed that the North had underestimated the Southern Army. Despite having numerical superiority, the Union troops lacked experience and organization, leading to defeat due to McDowell's ineffective strategy. In contrast, the arrival of General Stonewall Jackson turned the tide of the battle. His tactical genius and unwavering spirit helped the South hold on a Henry House Hill and shift from defense to counteroffensive, creating a crucial turning point. After the battle, both sides recognized that the conflict would be prolonged and necessitated more serious preparation. The North restructured its army, replacing McDowell with General George B. McClellan to build a more effective force. The Battle of Bull Run also delivered a psychological shock to the North, forcing them to reevaluate their strategy while reinforcing the South's belief in their ability to defend their right to secede. The Battle of Bull Run marked a bloody and dramatic beginning to the American Civil War. It changed the perceptions of both sides regarding the conflict. Initially, both the North and the South hoped for a swift resolution. But after the Battle of Bull Run, they realized that the war would drag on and demand greater sacrifices. This battle heralded a series of subsequent bloody encounters, but it was also where talented generals like Stonewall Jackson showcased their abilities, becoming enduring symbols of the conflict. In the next video, we will explore the developments of the most notable battles of the American Civil War. If you're interested in this historical event, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to receive notifications for future videos. Goodbye, and see you next time.